on the Anyway, I'd like to welcome everybody here, and I think I got everybody, and I especially like to welcome Pat. Pat Woods is going to be giving our program today, and I'm going to turn it over to her in a minute, but I'd like everybody to just kind of tell everybody where they're from, and I'll just go down the list here, and if I miss somebody, please let me know when I'm done. Faye, where are you from? Faye's muted. So Faye's
from Kansas.
Okay, good deal. Bonnie?
Oregon.
Yeah, she's in the other room. Barbara?
Hawaii.
Okay. And I got a Francis on here. I don't recognize who it is.
Hi, this is Francis from Hawaii.
Ah, I can tell it's Hawaii.
Hey, Francis.
Background. And Loretta, you're on there someplace.
I'm from Prineville, Oregon.
Okay. And Marja?
Oregon.
Okay. And Katie?
Kathy?
Kathy?
Kathy's from Maryland.
I got you down there, and I think in April, but I think that is actually Loretta. And so how about Linda with an I? I think that's Linda from, I think I got a couple of Lindas on here, at least two. How about Linda, just Linda, Linda?
Linda Hess from Kansas.
Okay. And then I got another Marlene from
Kansas.
Oh, good deal. And Linda Nyseth.
From Oregon.
Okay. And Tony.
Oregon.
Yeah. And who did I miss? I thought I saw Linda from Mississippi on here.
It's me, Linda, Mississippi.
Hey, Linda.
Hey,
Anybody I miss?
There's a Julie.
Julie? Where are you from?
Hi, I'm from Alaska, but I'm visiting my daughter in North Carolina. So it's very nice that you have this on Zoom, Scott.
Hey. By the way, oh, there's Ruth, and I don't know. I think she's, boy, too many friends. Ruth, can you hear us? She may not be fully logged in yet. Anyway,
There, I got you.
Oh, Ruth, where are you from?
Savannah, Missouri. Northwest Missouri.
Okay, good deal. All right, well, I think I got everybody introduced in there. If somebody else pops in, I'll try to do it. I appreciate everybody being here and being supportive of this. And I really appreciate those who present. Still looking for presenters. Today is going to be Pat Woods, and she's in Tennessee, and I'm going to turn that over to her in a minute. But before I got to give my little sales pitch. In January, Bonnie's going to be doing one on ACWW, and I don't know if she wants to tell you a little bit about it or not. Not at this time.
Oh,
Not quite ready. And then I have another one in February. An extension agent from North Dakota is going to do one on food security. She sent me all of her stuff, so I'll be sending that out a little bit later. So I'm still looking for people for presenters. I have a couple of them that I could give myself. One on a very controversial thing, electric cars, which I did, and I thought it was pretty good. I'm pretty biased though. And then I have one also that I could do on the human trafficking. So, and I would like to stick into National FCE has opened up part of their website is membership forms for all the different states. So as soon as we can get those, then you might encourage your state president to send those to me, and I'll post those on there. So you might go check that out. So I see Rebecca's come on, and I don't know if Rebecca can hear me or not.
Yes.
Oh, I know that's Rebecca tell them where you're from, Rebecca.
I'm from Klamath Falls, Oregon.
Yeah.
Delighted to be here.
Another one of our new members. Excellent one. We have lots of good members of it. So do you guys. All right, I'm going to turn the time over to you, Pat.
okay.
By the way, this is going to be recorded, and it'll be available on our Oregon FCE link. So
Well, good morning. Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Doing well, thank you.
Good, good. Well, this will be pretty informal. Just want to talk a little bit about how to be a good guest. We seem to concentrate at this time of the year hosting, but what happens when you get that invitation? So it's important to be a good host, yes. You got to be charming and gracious and give introductions. And those traits, they take practice. You have to see to the food and the drinks, but before you throw your hands up and you say, well, maybe next year we'll do all that, let's talk about being a great guest and talk about it from the guest's point of view. And as the world turns, we all know what the golden rule is: do unto others. Come on,
You would have them do unto you.
that's it. And that pretty much goes for any scenario of being a guest that you find yourself in. So good guest manners is just basic courtesy. And where do you start? You start with the invitation. Let me say, please don't wait till the last minute to let your host know that you can attend. The best explanation I can give for that is the host might think you don't think much of that invitation, or you're waiting for a better offer. If your invitation says you can bring a guest, let your host know that you will bring a guest, even if you don't know who that guest will be. So no matter how you receive that invitation, in the mail, by email, verbal, your first obligation is to respond to the invitation. Usually the host includes instructions on how to respond. You'll get a phone number, an email address, a mailing address, or a response card. But if you see RSVP, respond if you please, then follow the host's instructions within a day or two. Make sure you're available on that date. I have got so excited and thinking, oh, I'm going, and then find out, no, you're not, because you already had something planned. This is a commitment, and your host needs to know for reasons of buying the food, seating, getting other supplies. So it's important that you check your calendar and let your host know that you are available. Now, you've said yes. Is it okay to change your mind? You should have a good reason to change a yes to a no. You're sick, there's a death in the family, you're injured in some way, but not because you got a better offer. Call your host as soon as possible with your explanation and a sincere apology. Can you change your no to a yes? You have a bit more flexibility if the invitation was for a buffet, a barbecue, or just coming over for drinks and snacks. If you know your host well enough, you can call right away and ask her if that will be okay. Excuse me. But if you know your host will be upset, then just leave it at no. When you receive an invitation, the intention is you are the invitee. There are some common offenses. Parents, children are not automatically invited on a grown-up invitation. If the invitation says the Jones family or kids are invited, then that's fine. They will be welcomed. I can remember in years gone by when my children were younger and we'd get an invitation, my first thought would be, are they going to serve alcohol? And if alcohol was going to be a big part of that party or to do, then usually I left my kids at home. If your invitation says a guest or a date, when you arrive, let the host know that person's name, because it's the host's duty to make those introductions. If you have relatives visiting or you have an overnight guest, you might want to turn down the invitation, but give an explanation. That way you batted that ball into the host court and they can decide whether to say, oh no, go ahead and bring them. Might not be the case if it's a formal event because that takes a little bit more planning. But there are exceptions to every rule. If you're recently engaged, you're in a serious relationship, then you might want to turn down the invitation with the explanation. But again, throw that ball in the host court and let them.
No, you got lights.
Pardon? Okay. Throw that ball in the host court and let them decide whether or not it's okay. So you know how to handle the invitation and you're going to the event. Now what? Let's talk about good guest manners. Manners and etiquette involve rules. Some people call it home training. I can remember my mother calling it mother wit or social graces. And there was always that fear of that look from my mother if you made a mistake. Again, you want to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So being a good guest, one who gets invited often, and remember, you don't get invited for your appetite. Be considerate of other guests and be enthusiastic, and then you'll be put on the invited again list. In the 19th century, when an even numbered table setting was thrown off by a guest canceling at the last minute, there were professional guests who could round out the table, and they were called 14. It means the 14th because 13 was considered an unlucky number. To have an odd number of guests at your table was considered unlucky and in bad taste for the host. Being an accomplished and sought after 14 could be a lucrative position with a lot of young, good looking young men who probably made a lot of money with that job. Most important, arrive on time, arrive on time, arrive on time. Between 5 to 15 minutes after the initial start time, that's acceptable. What is not a great idea is showing up early. Most hosts are busy putting finishing touches on things, and that last 15 or 20 minutes is crucial.
Okay.
You don't want to show up at the door
Oh, no.
I see him.
looking wild and crazy or all out of sorts. If you will be late, let your host know so they can start without you if necessary. Remember, while you're at the party, turn your phone off. Be unavailable for a change. If you must take or make a call, excuse yourself. Put your phone on vibrate. Excuse yourself. Leave the room to make the call.
Thank you.
Compliment the food, the home, the decorations, but be sincere. That phrase, like, oh, that's cute, that won't work. Be sincere. And take part. If there are games, join in. If there's food you never tried before, try it, unless you're allergic. Participate in conversations at the table. It's your duty as a guest to speak to that person on your left and your right. I'm sure you've all heard the phrase turning the table. That started back in the Victorian era, where the hostess at the beginning of the meal, she would speak to the people on her left. And then a little later in the meal, she would speak to the people on her right. Snooping is a no-no. Going in the medicine cabinets and the drawers, that's a no-no. They're off limits. If you break something, let your host know that you did and that you offer to repair or replace it. You can offer to help. There's a lot of things you can help as being a good guest. But if you get turned down, Don't get your feelings hurt. There's probably a reason for that.
Oh, down.
Unless you're invited, stay out of the kitchen. We all have that friend that comes in and helps, and that's fine. But for the most part, if you haven't been asked, stay out of the kitchen. Don't switch place cards. If you find out where your seat is, that spot was picked especially for you. You don't get to change it so you can sit next to your best friend. When other people begin to leave, that's time for you to leave too. Don't get comfortable. It's expected that you stay about an hour after dinner. If you must leave early, let your host know when you arrive so they're not like, well, she just left. That way they won't be surprised or insulted. Always say goodbye and thank you to your host. If they're not together, then seek them out and say goodbye to each one. But be mindful of what they're doing. Any questions so far? Okay, let's talk about hostess gifts. A gift, be it wine or flowers or candy or a small gift for the house, is always appreciated and it's always a lovely gesture. If you're visiting someone's home for the first time, it is a nice gesture. If the hosts are people that you dine with often, then it's not necessary. If it's the host's birthday or anniversary, then a gift is fine. If the invitation states no gifts, please, then comply with that request. Housewarming gifts should be something for the home, and it should be something that will last. So you wouldn't bring fresh cut flowers to a housewarming. You should bring a hostess gift if you are the guest of honor, or send flowers ahead of time. Send a thank you note to the host after the event. If you bring cut flowers, put them in a vase. You don't want your host to have to stop what they're doing to run around and look for a vase. Candy, wine, and special treats are fine, but remember, the host or hostess, she's not obligated to serve them at that party. You could bring hand towels or cocktail napkins with a monogram, candles, a house plant in a pretty pot, liqueurs or cognac. If you're an overnight guest, then let your gift reflect how you were treated. And all gift giving, and this is important, like for our young folks going out into the world, they need to know their budget. Don't go broke trying to impress the boss. You want to thank your host upon leaving and then send a written thank you note afterwards. You can call or send an email the next day if you don't send a written note. If the party was in your honor and you didn't bring a gift with you, send flowers or a gift soon after. We want sometimes to reciprocate that invitation in some way. Take your host out to dinner or invite them for lunch. You can entertain them in your home. I've always found that if I get to have a function with them that has to do with their family and friends, that always feels really good. There are exceptions if the invitation was for a wedding or a ball or an official function, or you got invited to a function that you had to pay for, then there's no need to reciprocate. Just let me say, the most important thing of all of this is to be the guest that you would like to invite to your home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. I have a question which has to do with passing food around the table. I was taught to serve from the left, remove from the right. However, when we're sitting around the table, does that mean we, pardon? that we send it to the right so that it's served from the left.
All right. So if there, say the bread basket is in front of you,
Right.
you don't take bread, you pass the bread to the right. Sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes you wind up not getting any bread because it's gone all the way around the table.
Okay.
But you do want to pass.
Right, and pass it to the right.
Pass it
Okay,
to the
I
right.
appreciate that.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Yes,
Kathy.
I'd love to say that I think that was just the most wonderful presentation. You just covered
you.
so many things that people don't think about today, that were maybe more taught in an earlier time, but it would be
Sure.
very worthwhile. One thing you didn't mention is
Yes.
that if your invitation does not say bring a guest, you should not bring a guest. I remember once inviting a young lady to come and meet my husband's good friend who was single. She brought her on a date with her. And so that was pretty shocking. And I bet a lot of people might think of doing that, but that's something you should not do.
No, always check, always check. Always check. Thank you so much for that compliment, though. I appreciate that.
I remember a story of my mother and dad were inviting a young couple that just recently came to their community, and mom invited them over for dinner. And at the appointed hour, they weren't there. An hour later, they still were not there. So mom and dad decided to go to town and go shopping.
Okay.
And later they came back, and they came hours later. When mom said it was dinner, she was wanting to say the noon hour. They, in their culture, dinner was the evening meal.
Yep, 8 o'clock. Yeah, be specific with those times, especially if you're dealing with people from different cultures. We lived in Italy for a while, and dinner sometime is 8:30 at night. So we had to get used to that and eat a little something beforehand. That's probably your best bet. Have a snack. Anybody
We have
else?
some friends in their culture,
Mhm.
is routine for them to be late. 15, 20 minutes, maybe even an hour late.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's hard, especially if you're preparing a meal. Now, if it's
Yes.
just, come as you are party, everybody have snacks and drinks, that's a little bit different. But if dinner's at 6 o'clock, I usually mean dinner's at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's the way I was brought up.
It's put a strain on the friendship to be that, hour and a half late.
Yes, yes, yes. We have, and I'm sure most people have run into this. You have that good friend and you love them to death, but they are always late. What you have to remember is that's a control issue. I don't know if they can help it. It's just part of their DNA or what, but for me, I always tell that friend way earlier so I can get her there on time.
So do you think I could qualify as a professional guest?
I think you could.
You said
I
young,
think
handsome. I don't know about the young anymore.
Listen, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, Scott.
Well, I agree. So I
Yes,
have a
you could
question.
qualify.
So I have a question for you, Pat.
Sure.
You obviously had a list of things you covered like that. Is that in a format that you could send to me and I could post that on our website right next to the recording link?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay,
And I
so
can also post the quiz.
Okay, so I'll do that when she sets that on there, and then I will put that on the website, on the Oregon FCE website, right on that same page. And if you noticed, I've started doing that. I figured out, well, why can't I do that? So I'll put a little link right there, and then you will be able to go look at her written parts of it there.
Thank you.
And I
Thank
guess I'm
you.
the guest that needs to not get there too early, because I just don't like the fact that people are late all the time. So I have a tendency to be there early, and maybe I shouldn't be there too early.
Not too early. You could get there, maybe 10 minutes early. There's that little fine line, that little grace period. And it depends on your relationship sometimes, I think, with the host too.
Yeah.
You can always call ahead and say, hey, do you need some help? Do you need me to pick up ice or another bottle of wine? And sometimes that'll help get you in the door a little bit earlier.
Yeah. Anybody else got any questions for her or comments? I mean, I think this is an excellent thing we all need to think about.
Elbows and reaching across the table was big for my grandma.
Did she get you?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. Now I will tell you this, once the table is clear and everyone is finished eating, you can put your elbows on the table. You can rest your arms on the table. In between, when the dinner is going on, it's kind of hard to keep your hands in your lap that whole time. So you can, from the wrist up, put them on the edge of the table. That's fine. Reaching, you always ask someone to pass it. And remember, the salt and pepper shaker are married. Even if I ask you for the pepper, you send me the salt and the pepper shaker. That way they're not separated on opposite ends of the table. Thank you for that.
Matter of fact, I went to an etiquette thing years and years and years ago, probably back in about 1985. And it was actually I call her a Southern Belle, and she was from Tennessee, and she talked about that very thing. And I always remember the salt and the pepper are married.
They're married.
And they get passed together, and they don't get separated.
Nope.
Little things like that. And then right after her presentation, we sit down for dinner, and guess who was sitting right across from me? And anyway, wonderful opportunity. I learned a few things about etiquette. That's what she talked about. Like go to the theater, and does the guy go in front of the gal or behind the gal?
Yes.
All this,
There's so much.
That depends on whether you have some help there. So anyway, I thought it was really neat.
There's so much. We all need a little bit. There's a saying, it's better to have manners and not need them than to need them and not have them.
I can share something that my mother-in-law did. If you put your elbows on the table, yeah, you'd get a fork in your
elbow. She was serious. I like her.
Yeah,
if it wasn't a fork, it was a spoon upside the head.
Yep.
She was born in 1901, but she passed at 65 years old.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it was a little different back then. That's what I meant by the home training. And a lot of us had those grandmas and those aunts that were, always willing, like you said, to put that spoon upside your head if you did something wrong.
Yeah, my mom never, you could put your elbows on the table or whatever, and she never said anything. So it was eye-opening and very learning. And it was a good learning.
That's cute.
When my daughters were at home, my mother would come, and she was a stickler on manners. Elbows was one of those. Another one was talking with your mouth full. And my kids didn't quite understand that until they were guests at a home or an event, and the hostess was talking a lot with a full mouth. Later, one of the daughters said, I see now why that is good manners, not to be talking with your mouth full.
Your mouth full. Yes, indeed.
Another one is double dipping, or taking a say a raw vegetable tray
Mhm.
of raw vegetables, and you eating the broccoli and putting the stem back onto the plate.
Mm-mm. No, Bonnie's
Putting
over there squirming.
Put what back on the plate? I didn't catch that.
If you had a vegetable plate, a raw vegetable, you pick up to eat the broccoli floret and eat the floret and then put the stem back on the serving
Oh.
plate.
No, no, no.
No, I'm cringing. I'm cringing.
Yeah, I did too.
Uh-huh.
When I was growing up, after dinner sometimes, or even during the meal, our mother would have us receive something from someone with our left hand and then change to with our right hand, change to our left hand and pass it on. That way, crossing the body, you're not as likely to spill as taking and using your right hand and passing it on with your right hand.
That's pretty neat. Oh, that. Yeah, we used to get it at home. I will tell you how, let me tell you how I got started in all of this, just real quick. My husband and I used to shoot weddings and bar mitzvahs and you name it, funerals. We took pictures of all sorts of things. So we were at a wedding and I looked over at a table and it was a mother and her daughter. And the daughter asked her mom, "What fork do I use?" And her mom said, "I don't care, just pick one." So when I looked back a little bit later, the daughter had stabbed her chicken breast with her fork and she was just eating it like it was a lollipop. So I looked at my husband and he's giving me the look like, don't say anything, just keep quiet. So when we went back home and it was getting close to me retiring, I looked up the Etiquette and Leadership Institute. It's in Athens, Georgia. And I just felt like if I'm going to work with children, I think it would be a good idea to have some kind of credentials, just not my knowledge from growing up. And so I went there. It's a 5-day course. It's pretty intense. And I went there so I could become certified. So the world of etiquette and manners was created just so that we're all comfortable with each other. It's not to make anyone better than anybody else or for you to have your nose in the air, your pinky up. It's just so when we sit down at the table or when we interact with each other, we're all comfortable and pretty much on the same page.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think some of the manners that my generation was growing up have become more lax since the formal dining and social gathering is less. But when you have young people in the school system and they're only given 20 minutes, and that's from the time they enter the cafeteria to the time they put the tray down to eat. They don't have much time for manners or talking.
No.
Plus, they don't give them very many utensils, so they're eating with their hands. How many times do we go out to fast food and we're eating with our hands?
That's right. That's right. It's so true. It's so true. I do tell the kids, you can have manners eating a Happy Meal. You can do it. There's a way. But you're so correct. A lot of what I learned growing up, I learned in school. The teachers took time. Well, I had nuns, so I know all about that spoon upside the head. So a lot of that, the nuns taught us. And you had a watcher at the table. That's what we call them. At the table in the cafeteria, and they kept order. Trust me.
I know this isn't etiquette, but I have to use scissors all the time. I have no teeth. I have to chop everything up. Sometimes I'll use a fork to hold something down, but a lot of times I'll use my fingers. Where you don't have any teeth, what is the right way to do it?
You're doing what's best for you.
Well,
You're doing what's
There's
best for
grace
you.
in that.
I
That's
found
right.
that a lot of people are embarrassed, but I would rather not choke to death.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. That's right. Like I said, there's exceptions usually to all the rules, and you have to do what you need to do. Just like we're taught, you cut one piece of meat at a time. Well, if you're at a banquet and everybody's, sitting so close together, it is proper etiquette to cut up 3 pieces of meat at one time so that you're not constantly elbowing that person next to you. And it's always proper to cut up the meat for a child or for someone who's disabled. So if you need to use your scissors, sister, you go right ahead.
And I'll have to say, my mother was a stickler on not talking with your mouth full.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, there's a whole with that and using your napkin, at the table, and teaching children that the napkin is there to dab your mouth, not, wash your whole face with. So it's a lot. It's a lot.
And
but you make it fun.
And we did use the tines of the fork when our kids were growing up. They did not put their elbows on the table. They learned from a very young age that they kept their elbows off.
That's it. Did anybody use that little sing song my mom did at the table? Pat, pat, strong and able. Keep your elbows off the table. And if you heard that, yeah, you're done. You were done. You're gonna get it. But if you look back, etiquette means card in French. And back when Louis XIV would have the big balls and whatnot, you were given an etiquette, a card, which told you exactly where to go, where to stand, what to do. And that all started because his gardener kept having trouble with people trampling through the flower beds and walking where they shouldn't. And the king said, well, put up etiquettes, put up cards. So basically, this all started with a keep off the grass sign.
Wow.
That's how we got started. But again, so that everybody would be comfortable with each other and you would know what to do.
Any other comments or questions? Or I thought this was really good.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. I've enjoyed it.
I finally remembered that gal's name from Tennessee. Her name was Nancy Gentry. And that's clear back from 1985. So that tells you that's
she stuck with you.
Yeah, a long time ago. And I learned also that I eat ice cream long. You're never supposed to lick it. You're supposed to bite it. And
we had a babysitter when I was coming up, and we had a Dairy Queen at the end of our street. And we were never allowed to get an ice cream cone. My sister and I, we always had to have our ice cream in a cup because she thought it was so unladylike to be seen licking that ice cream cone and walking down the street.
Yep.
I want to comment, Pat.
Please.
This is a great program. Thank you so much. And we had a rule at our house, especially when we had guests, for the napkins on your lap.
Right.
I'll kind of survey the table and start counting 1, 2, 3, and the kids knew. Oh, it's the napkin.
Oh, it's the napkin. That's your first call to order when you sit at the table. Put that napkin in your lap.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
There are even now adulting classes for, say, students in college. And not only life skills that maybe are no longer taught or was not important to them at one time,
They need it now.
Is etiquette.
Yes. A lot of potential
There was a story of
employers.
Yes. Henry Ford would take his potential employees out to eat. And this one man just sat down, got the food, and started salting the food. He was not hired.
Nope.
The guy that tasted the food and then added the salt was hired.
Get hired.
Because you test first and then see if you need to make changes.
That's it.
Oops.
That's it. They watch how you treat the wait staff, because that's an indicator of how you would treat your fellow employees. It's a good, because we've encouraged all our young people, go to college, get a degree. As the HR person or that potential boss, you might have 10 people, and to use the phrase cookie cutter, they all have the same qualifications. And so they can use that as a way to sort of weed them out by who has at least some table manners.
Yep. You did get a couple of comments in there. I see Frances said, this is a very informative and I enjoyed it. And she said, thank you. I don't know if you picked that up, Pat,
No, I didn't.
on the messages.
I wouldn't touch anything, Scott.
Well, that's okay. And Bonnie said, I agree, Linda, very good. Pat had one. Thank you, Pat, for all the good information and reminders. Enjoyed your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you all.
I'm trying to read the little messages that come along there. If you click down there, you can see them. I also sent out some messages, and lots of you weren't on there. I'm still looking for presenters, and as you guys can see, there's all kinds of variety of things, and some people get really fancy with PowerPoints and videos and some other things, but I thought this was a wonderful one to do it. Just a great discussion and presentation on it. Makes us all think a little bit.
Thank you all for your questions too.
So let me know if you'd like to be a presenter, and I take care of everything but doing the lesson.
All right.
I would like to see Linda's Hearthfire or FCL lesson put on Oregon.
The one that Linda did?
Yeah.
Well,
At National.
So would I, but you know, she's got to commit to do it. You want to tell them what it was about, Linda?
Which Linda are you talking about?
The one on family and
Oh,
meals. Oh, the other one on music is great too.
well, I would give me a minute.
Okay, time's up.
I'll let you know.
Okay. Well, unless somebody else has another question, I think we're going to close up here. And Pat, I really, really appreciate you doing this.
Thank
I know
you so
it takes
much.
some time, and I appreciate everybody coming and supporting her and learning
Yes.
a bit on it. It'll take me, I may have it up this afternoon on that, and you can share those links, and please share the heck out of it. And I know Tony's actually, she's given me a reference for a presenter, and I'm working on that one there. So I've got a few others in there, and anyway, I just appreciate everything. I by the way, for your information, I send out about 600 emails with the invitations in there, and I fully understand that not everybody can be here at this time. So
True.
Scott,
yes,
would it be possible for you to send me the written information that will be on the website? At the email at the OSU?
Yes, when Pat sends it to me, Loretta, I'll send that to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pat.
You're welcome. You're welcome. If you have
It was
any
a
other
great
questions,
lesson.
let me know. Thank you. Thank you. I love doing it. I love doing it.
All right. Now
Thank you.
I'll see you in there. And Bonnie, I still want to come to that Tennessee conference. We went that one time and it was really, really good. And somebody sent me a picture.
Paris Landing.
What's that?
Paris Landing, November.
Okay. Well, you guys gotta invite me before I can come. Because
Well, of
I
course.
need the information.
Okay.
All right.
Will do.
Thanks,
Thanks all.
everybody.
Thank you all. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And if any, I'll turn the recording off, and if somebody wants to chat for a minute, they're welcome to do that. I got to find out where my recording thing button is.